Hi guys, Techman here. Today we're going to be looking at an interesting portable power station. Now back in the days when it was released, it was one of its kind. There weren't many power stations that could do what this device could do. This is the Powergorilla by Powertraveller. Now I first purchased this device over a decade ago. This particular device I've owned itself for a decade. About 15 months after owning the first device, I had a problem. The customer service from Powertraveller was amazing. They replaced the device for me free of charge, but we'll discuss that a little later in the video. Now you might ask, if this device is so old, why are you taking a look at it and why are you reviewing it? Good question. The fact of the matter is this device is still in production and it's still called a Powergorilla. There have been some upgrades to it, and we'll look into that in a little while, but the core principles of this device and what it houses are still the same. The upgraded version has a slightly higher capacity. Interestingly, the upgrade also has UPS built in. Now this is at 19 volt, but for a device at this size and this capacity, that's brilliant, and I am quite amazed at how Powertraveller have included the UPS system in such a small device. There are not many power banks in this day and age at this size that house a UPS. Unfortunately, there is still no USB-C, and that's something we'll come to a little later. I've drawn up comparisons of the Powergorilla old and new here. On the left we have the specifications of the Powergorilla I have, and on the right we have the new Powergorilla specifications. And as you can see, there's not much difference in the older and newer models. They both weigh 700 grams and have the same dimensions. What's good to note is the capacity has slightly increased. The one I have is a 21 amp hour or 21,000 milliamp hour Powergorilla, while the newer models house a 24 amp hour or 24,000 milliamp hour battery pack. There's also a difference in the input voltage. The model I have could take up to 30 volts, whereas the new ones have a limit of 25 volts. What's good to note is the power from the USB outlet has increased to 2.4 amps here. Mine is limited to just 1 amp. Here's a UPS function we touched on a little earlier, and one thing to note is the output DC voltage range. The older model that I have can output 8.4 volts and 9 volts too, whereas the new ones start at just 12 volts. Now that might be because there were devices which would power via 8.4 volts or 9 volts, such as DSLRs, sat-navs and other small electronic devices, whereas the technology nowadays will almost certainly be powered by a USB or USB-C at the very least. But apart from these few differences, the new model is largely the same as the old one. Now the Powergorilla itself is quite neat and compact. It measures 21.5 centimeters by 13 centimeters by 1.7 centimeters. It's a really nice and compact device. It easily fits into your backpack. There's also room for your, well, other life-saving equipment. On the front we can see there's an engraved Powergorilla. We have an LCD display with a power button here. This button also is the main function button. On the top we have a USB-A out, we have a DC in and a DC out.
Thank you, Shaq.
And that's just about it. There's nothing else on this device apart from some specifications on the back. The casing on this is actually made from aluminium or aluminum, however you pronounce it, and it's a robust device. The sides are made from shockproof rubber, which allow easy gripping of the device and also anti-slip. It's a great device and very well made, and I've had a lot of compliments when using this device out and about. There are a number of safety features inside the device, such as voltage limitation, which controls the input voltage when charging. There's also current limitation, short circuit protection, and overcharge protection. Now as this device is quite old, I'm not going to go too far into its details, and I'm not going to run any capacity tests, but just my experience with this product and the manufacturer who produces them. The device I initially owned and purchased worked very well. I had probably run about 30 cycles within the first 15 months of having the product, and everything from charging my laptop and USB devices worked very well. However, after about 15 months I realized that the battery depleted very quickly. I sent out an email to Powertraveller describing the problem that I was facing. They asked me for the serial number and said that even though the manufacturer's warranty had expired, the product should last a lot longer, and they asked if I can send my Powergorilla to them for observation and examination. I duly did as asked, and hey ho, a few days later a new device arrived at my doorstep, and this was the actual product I received. I was thrown back and amazed that the warranty period for the Powergorilla I actually had purchased had elapsed, yet Powertraveller took responsibility and replaced the device free of charge. Over the past few years I've also looked into this problem, and I've noticed that a lot of people have had that problem with this device. So I wonder if Powertraveller have picked that up and improved that in the newer devices that they've made and the upgrades that they've included in the newer Powergorillas. Now the USB on this device is actually USB-A, and it's very limited. In fact, the current you can draw from here is a maximum of 1 amp. And if you want to charge anything that draws more than 1 amp, you need to buy a separate adapter. Now the Powertraveller actually comes in a neat box. This is actually the old box and they've upgraded this a couple of times. Inside the box we actually get the AC-DC transformer or the power brick. This one charges at 16 volts and 2.3 amps. And the thing I like about this, it's not only got conformity with the different various electrical certifications, but also it is UL listed. Well done, Powertraveller. Now with the power brick itself, you can charge your Powergorilla within 3 to 4 hours. We also get a nice and handy user manual, and there's actually quite a lot of details inside the manual itself, including FAQs and how to troubleshoot the device. They also include various adapters which you can use with the AC power brick and charge your device in various countries around the world. Nice and handy. What I like about Powertraveller is they provide a lot of adapters, and I mean a lot. Here on the right, we have some tips and adapters for USB devices. Now these tips are quite old and perhaps we don't have many devices which use these tips anymore, but at the time this was very relevant. And on the left side here, we have tips to use on the DC output side. This is to charge and power laptops and portable devices that need a higher voltage. There are also these L-shaped connectors which allows us to use the power brick that comes with our portable devices and laptops to charge the Powergorilla itself. Nice.
Awesome.
I think that's a fantastic idea. We all know when we go camping or when we're traveling, and when we have a lot of portable devices and laptops, we have to carry so many power bricks and transformers, and packing them all into a small backpack can be a pain. But if we were to take these adapters with us and just the power brick of our laptop, we can not only charge and power our laptop, but also the Powergorilla by using one of these L-shaped connectors. Now what do I like about the Powergorilla? Well, first of all, it's the build quality. The aluminum casing is fantastic. The rubberized anti-shock sides is brilliant. And the device is generally very well made. I really enjoyed carrying this around with me when I used to take it with me on my travels. Another fantastic feature with the Powergorilla is that it has a built-in MPPT charge controller. And there weren't many devices that had a built-in MPPT charge controller at the time when I purchased this in 2010. In fact, at the time when I purchased it, there wasn't another device that had an MPPT charge controller built in. Now I could be wrong, there might have been another device, but I didn't find one when I sourced the internet. I used to have a 24 volt 1 amp foldable solar panel, and I used to carry this and that solar panel with me wherever I would go. And although the power from the solar panel I had at the time was not regulated, I had no need to worry because the MPPT charge controller in this device did all the work for me. It would take in the spike in voltage, regulate it, and charge the Powergorilla with the right voltage and amperage depending on its state of charge or SOC. Another feature I liked about the Powergorilla was that the USB port had an auto shut off function. So rest assured, plug in your device overnight and the Powergorilla will shut off automatically when your device is fully charged. At the time when the Powergorilla was first released, this was something new. Another thing I like about the Powertraveller is that from the DC output port, you can charge many devices at different voltages. You can scale up the voltage from 8.4 volts to 9.5, 12, 16, 19, and up to even 24 volts. That's neat, that's something I like, and that's something that wasn't quite present at the time when I purchased this device, so that's brilliant, excellent. I also like the fact that in the box they provide this neoprene carrying case. You are able to put your connectors in here as well as your Powergorilla. Now personally myself, I wouldn't put any connectors in here as it may damage my Powergorilla. My only gripe with the case is that when we put the Powergorilla inside the case, it does snug in quite tight, and that when we try to close the zip, you can see that it rubs against the edges and that we have some paint strip off the corners as a result. But apart from that, this is a nice handy case. The number of accessories thrown into the box is also fantastic, but above all I must praise the customer service of Powertraveller. Now I'm not only praising them because they replaced my device free of charge, although it was out of warranty, but I've contacted them a number of times with different queries and questions, and on each occasion I've had a swift response. Now what don't I like about the Powergorilla? Well, first of all, it's the LCD screen. Although the LCD on my device here is fully working and intact, I've seen many devices online and sold on eBay with cracked screens. It seems that this screen here is quite brittle and can be easily broken. Now although the cracked screens that I've seen may not be the fault of the device itself, and perhaps may be due to user handling, but the sheer number of cracked screens that I've seen seems to suggest that perhaps the screen itself is not as strong as one may think. So that's something Powertraveller can work on. Now another thing I don't like is the bar status for state of charge. Now in Powertraveller's defense, there weren't many devices back in 2010 that had a percentage in the status, but as the Powertraveller is still in production, and although its appearance has evolved over the years, there is still no battery percentage to indicate the state of charge. So that's something I'd like Powertraveller to work on in their future models of the Powergorilla. In fact, Powertraveller have a few other products that actually have a percentage, so I think they can incorporate that in the Powergorillas too. Speaking of state of charge, I have noticed inconsistency in the bar status. The Powergorilla itself depletes to 4 bars quite quickly and then stays there for a bit and then depletes very quickly back to 0. Now the device that I initially purchased and developed a fault after 15 months had the same problem. This particular device worked very well for a couple of years and then developed the same fault. I'd like to also mention that although I've had this device for almost a decade, I strongly believe I've cycled it less than 100 times, but currently it perhaps holds only just 50% of its original capacity. Now the Powertraveller itself houses lithium polymer pouch cells inside, and I think these are 6 in series, but lithium polymer cells usually have a 500 plus cycle life to 80% state of charge, but my Powergorilla here is down to 50% in less than 100 cycles, and I'm not the only one who has complained about this. I've had discussions with other people who purchased a Powergorilla and they all say the same thing. After 20 to 30 cycles, or perhaps even up to 50 cycles, you see a significant reduction in capacity. Perhaps this is age-related degradation, I have no idea, but I have other power stations of similar size to this, from the likes of Orki and PowerAd, who have been cycled much more, yet the degradation level in them is far less. Another downside to the Powergorilla is that it only houses one USB port, and again the current from here is limited to just 1 amp. Now Powertraveller have upgraded the USB port on the newer Powergorillas, and the latest model is able to pump out 2.4 amps, but I think there should be at least 2 USB ports on a device of this size. And I'm still disappointed there's no quick charge on the newer Powergorillas. In addition to that, and fast forwarding to today's age, I'm disappointed that they have not yet integrated a USB-C port. Now although the USB-A port here is quite limited, there is a way of getting more USB power, and that's by using the DC output port. Now Powertraveller actually make an accessory which you have to buy separately called a Gorilla Pod or Gorilla Pad. How did I get that wrong?
I don't know what happened, frankly.
The way to use this is actually connected to the DC output port of the Powergorilla. You then can connect whatever USB device you have to the USB-A port here, and what you're actually doing here is quite interesting. You see, we're providing 8.4 volts or perhaps even 9.5 volts or 12 volts to the DC output port. This 12 volt power source then travels into this device here, which is called the Gorilla Pad, and it in turn regulates it to 5 volts and up to 2.4 amps. So you can charge your iPads and other USB devices that need a lot more power through here. For this old Powergorilla, this is quite handy, but as I mentioned before, the newer Powergorillas actually provide 2.4 amps from the USB port. One other drawback of the Powergorilla is its price. It's currently out of stock on the Powertraveller website, but as you can see, it's quite expensive on many web stores across the internet. I myself paid over £100 back in 2010, and in today's age, there are plenty of power banks and portable power stations that have better features at a similar price. In fact, you can pay a bit more and get a whole load of extra capacity and features. There's also a solar panel which they sell with the Powergorilla, and as you can see on the screen, it is very expensive. It's a 10 watt foldable solar panel. Yes, it's rigid, it's compact, and it's well designed, but it's also very expensive. Now I remember at the time when I purchased a Powergorilla, there was talks of a Solar Gorilla Extreme. I can't quite find any pictures of it now in 2021, but I believe Powertraveller did not fulfill their interest in producing this new solar panel. What I'd like to see from Powertraveller is perhaps a 100 or even a 200 watt foldable solar panel to purchase as an accessory for the Powergorilla, or perhaps even a larger Powergorilla power station. I mean, it seems that every power station that comes out in the market now comes with its own sets of solar panels as a bundle. We've seen on Indiegogo with all these campaigns, All Power's Monster X, the Leok 2048 watt-hour portable power station, the Elec Hive, the Bluetti, and so forth. Each manufacturer is selling its own sets of solar panels as a bundle, and yes, they are quite pricey, but for the price of a Solar Gorilla, you can get a 100 watt-hour solar panel. So I'd like to see Powertraveller to perhaps produce something similar to the Solar Saga from Jackery. Now what would I like Powertraveller to integrate in the newer Powergorillas? Well, first of all, I think they need to make larger portable power stations. Having a 70 or 80 watt hour portable power station is quite handy, but nowadays people prefer to have much larger stations. These stations can have multiple USB-C or USB-A ports, DC output ports, and perhaps an AC inverter. I'd also like them to upgrade the LCD display. I'd like to see an integrated battery percentage and more information available on the LCD with regards to errors, perhaps input and output wattage, and an error code alert system to alert us if there's a problem with the device. I'd also like them to bring the price down of this device. It's far too expensive and there's a lot of competition out there for the size and the power. The prices need to be much more competitive if you are seriously thinking of attracting consumer interest. I'd also like to see more USB ports and also quick charge and USB-C integrated into the Powergorilla, and I'd also like to see more DC 5.5 2.1 output ports. I'd also recommend that in today's age they replace the lithium polymer cells with lithium iron phosphate cells. Right, so that's my take on the Powergorilla. As I mentioned before, I'm not doing a capacity test of the device today. This is because my device here has degraded quite a lot, as I mentioned earlier. In fact, I'm only able to put in 38 watts of power and draw about 30 watts out of it. So to sum up, this is a lovely portable power station or solar generator. Well, at least it was back in its days. Technology has developed a lot, and although Powertraveller have a few revisions of the Powergorilla in the past few years, it really doesn't keep up with today's day and age. There are a number of changes they need to make to stay in the competition. Now, what are your experiences with Powertraveller Powergorilla? Have you owned such a device? And what was your experience? Perhaps you own other products from Powertraveller. What are your thoughts of Powertraveller and the products that you own? Let me know in the comments below. Now I'm going to throw in right at the end here, I'm not much of an orator, so do forgive me for the way I speak. I don't usually speak in this tone, but perhaps coming on YouTube regularly, this will improve and I'll build my confidence. Right guys, it's time for me to sign out. Take care guys, Techman here, I'll see you in the next one.